Another day in paradise. Yeah, baby. Let's dive into it, shall we? Let's dive into it. I want to talk about the truth. Yikes. Yes, the truth. Whoa. Isn't your channel crazy, OPEX? When you talk about the truth? So I've made a video called The Truth is Subjective. Go ahead and go back and watch that video where I make the claim of the truth being subjective rather than objective. And it's more important to realize this. However, this isn't the video where I'm going to explain that to you and go through the process and use my evidence and reason and logic. However, I want to talk about why the truth is very important. I understand that people want to say that they have the truth and somebody else doesn't because they have different type of information. I think this is very important. That's why I've made so many videos on experiencing evidence, reason, and logic, why I talk about these things, because you need to distinguish what is real evidence and what is not. Because what a scientist tells you, studies have shown, isn't fucking real evidence. This is just somebody telling you something that they have found, and of course there's variables on everything. So what you have experienced and what you believe and hold to be true is important to you, right? You may have found a claim or an understanding to life that somebody else has not had, and you want to share it or at least hold it dear to yourself. Me personally, I like to share all my findings. Now, I've made some crazy, outrageous claims. The truth being subjective is one. Shit. I'm gonna have the sun in my eyes because I can't put my visor down. Alright. I made claims of, well, empty space not being real. That time is not real. You can't empirically prove that there's such thing as time. You have such things as clocks, sure. And you have such thing as the past and the present and the future, sure. But however, the claims that I've made, I've put a lot of reasoning behind. I don't think it's important to be copy-paste, everybody indoctrinated, and everybody thinking the same as in a robotic, slave-like species. I'm not into that. Embrace your uniqueness, your weirdness. Now, your truth could be something as simple as reading the Bible, right? This is having somebody else's spiritual experience, or at least their dogma, and they want to incorporate it into your life and have you obey that law, which they say is from a higher power or the creator or whatever, right? And I hope you guys don't understand, or I hope you guys understand that I'm never bashing religion. I'm not here to bash. I'm here to explain truth. And the truth is important because the truth will set you free. But the truth is not objective. The truth is not, for example, somebody might believe in their mind that they are free through the Holy Spirit and God, the Son. You know, obviously, everyone pretty much knows Jesus gave his life for humanity, to rescue you from your sinful nature. Now, I've read the Bible back and forth plenty of times. 4 times the New Testament. Sorry. 3 times the Old Testament. I'm trying to remember the ages I've done this. 3 times the Old Testament and the New Testament about 7 times. I know the Bible in and out. So, again, I'm not here to bash. And I understand where people get better influence and can better their life and feel free through this ideology, which is life-changing, right? Now, just like you've probably heard from other YouTubers that are in the trucking world, they say, oh, don't talk to this person, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't watch this person because he doesn't know what he's talking about, or she. You hear it all the time because they have the truth about trucking. However, if you're looking at individuals on just trucking videos, you know that they're widely vast and there's an extreme amount of variables per individual. There is no right or wrong in trucking. There's legal and not legal, there's things like that, sure, but there is no individual truth to trucking. I mean, objective truth to trucking. There's things about trucking that is subjective and gears and opinionates toward the individual. So when I made a video called why you should not get into trucking, and then I made a video why you should get into trucking, it was to show the cons and the potential for these cons. It wasn't necessarily that this is objectively true, right? And that's why I got a lot of backlash. I got a lot of hate, especially on my why you should not get into trucking video, which unfortunately has all my views. That's like my most viewed video. It's like 32,000 views or whatever it is. And I'm not proud of that. I don't want my channel to be a trucking channel. And of course, it's going to bring over a bunch of lower IQ people to bitch and moan. Oh, I didn't start off at 30 CPM. Yeah, sure, you didn't. Great. Congratulations on your variable. Everyone starts off at a different rate. It's just industry standard to start off lower than people that have been around for quite a number of years. So everyone's truth is going to be different. I hope you guys realize this. So, of course, you hold your truth sacred. You started off at a higher CPM, so what I said could not possibly be true. Wrong. My truth is different than your truth. My experience is separate from your experience. The variables in my life are different than the variables in your life, in your career, in your where you live, what state, what area in the state. Are you near a river, right? There could be somebody that is not near any fishing streams and have no idea about fishing. I live near Lake Ontario and plenty of different rivers and lakes and streams. So, I hate that. So, I might know more about fishing than that other person. So if I talked about fishing, my truth is going to be separate from somebody who has never fished before, or at least has to go travel to fish. You know, and if I've done it for years, I think I know a thing or two about fishing. So understand that I don't have the truths. I have my truth and my understanding. And when I think of truth, I don't think of research-based truth. That is not truth. That is not evidence. The more evidence you have should dictate where your truths lie. Now, if you have an argument and evidence that backs up something that goes against your truth, you should surrender to the new one because it has more evidence. But of course, use your reason, use your logic, make sense of this new truth. So, truth is that, right? So I made a video on the world is pretty much holographic, and your understanding of the world is due to your interpretation. So it's your brain of determining what's outside, because we are all undergoing some sort of hallucination. Now, this is pretty scientifical, but of course, you need to understand this. Have you ever seen something whiz by you and your brain puts a picture in your brain that is what that object was, but then when you look and need to understand it and it comes to light and you see it clearly, this is your brain processing what that was, and then you realize what that was. So you are closer now to the truth through understanding, reasoning, and having your brain understand what that is and determine what it is. So something flew by your head and some memory in the past said that might have been a baseball, but then you look closer and it was a bird, right? So the truth is closer to you following the truth. Is closer than just assuming. So if you just assumed that was a baseball and then you looked the other way that someone probably threw it, and then you saw nobody who was like, "You punk kid with that baseball," Well, your truth is fucking false. So you need to surrender to the new evidence by actually looking and seeing that was actually a bird that flew by really fast. So your brain takes time to determine what that is. And you might not be at the stage of your life to get to that next step. Of course, through higher awareness, higher consciousness, things of this nature, you will understand the truths a lot better because you will surrender to new evidence when provided. And you won't be stuck in a state of dogma when there's no evidence to back that up. Or whatever the case, whatever your truth is now, you should surrender to the new truth, the new understanding of things, and reach that level of understanding that you don't know everything, and you never will know everything. Surrender to the new evidence if it's better than your old evidence, right? And then understand, okay, well, if my evidence makes sense, like I've been drinking milk my whole life and I'm fine, and that's your mentality, but then you look up, oh, well, this person has some genetic defects from drinking cow's milk at a very young age, or whatever, right? And understand that there is variables. Now, how does this apply to you? How is it affecting you? Now, look at it deeper. How is that affecting you? So then you come to new truths. Oh, it could affect others. So then you lose the mentality, well, milk is always good because that's what I learned and that's what the commercials said. Well, the commercials are trying to sell the product. They're not going to try to sell you on something that, hey, it's full of pus, it's going to genetically modify you to that of a calf, or whatever. So, just understand that you're not stuck in a position to be stuck in your truths. Now, a lot of people like to graduate high school and say, that's it, I did it. No more school, no more learning. Well, that's your fault. Every day you should be learning. I know some people that are in their 70s and proud to find something new. If you're not learning something new, not necessarily on a daily basis, but if you're not learning something new often enough, well, what happens to you? Of course, Albert Einstein once said, once you stop learning, you start dying. So what is the purpose to continue on after reproduction? To learn. After you reproduce and you lose those years of reproducing, and you're past that, is what I'm saying, well, why do you stick around? To help others, to learn, to understand how to hunt, like in tribal terms. Back in the times of tribalism, you would need to hunt and still be of value to the tribe. And today's modern age, you don't have to do that. So what is going to keep your time going? Learning. And then teaching the next generation, especially your own genetics, your own offspring. Learning. If you're stuck in a state of mind from when you were 18, this is pretty fucking sad, right? So, there's points in life that you need to understand how to better yourself, how to learn, and how to understand that your truths are not linear. They can fluctuate. So, when you say, and I've heard this before, my mom married a guy and he's a really cool guy and everything, but I went out fishing with him, and I remember he said, there's only one way to tie a hook to a line. And I looked at him, I was like, no, there isn't. I can look it up on Google right now. There's like 30 of them. I know 5 different methods of tying a hook to my line on the top of my head. But he said, no, there's only one way to do this. There's only one way to fish for this. No, this is your way. This is your truth, right? Now, if I come up with something different and it works, what do you have to say then? You can't just be stuck in your delusion. Now, I'm not saying he's delusional, but he did make that claim, there's only one way to fish for this. There's only one way to tie a knot. And I thought to myself, no, there isn't. You might have a more effective way than another way, but it's not only one way. You know, you're catching my drift here, how stupid that sounds to a philosopher, that there's only one way to skin a cat. There isn't. I can skin a cat 30 different ways, 30 different methods, and the result's going to be very similar every time. You know, start from the head instead of the guts. Start here instead of here. There's a million ways to do things. And when you're going through a path, right, there's not you having to go to school, you having to go to college, you having to get a job, you having to get married, you having to pay bills, you having to pay taxes and die, and have offspring and die. That's not a linear path for the individual. This is what they want to perpetrate into your mind, that this is what it is.
To 986 West, toward airport.
Toward airport, huh? Is that what it said? Great, toward airport. That's great. So understand truth is separate per the individual. If I want to live off grid and pay minimal taxes, minimal bills, and want to live off grid and live off the land, etc., well, that's going to save me a lot of money, and people aren't going to understand that lifestyle, especially when they've never seen that lifestyle. Now, the greatest thing about life is that we're all unique and individual. We all think differently. We all have different style. Now, if you see something and you do something, well, that tells me what kind of IQ you actually have. I don't want to be a copy-paste. I don't want to wear the same clothes as someone else. I don't want to have the same style as someone else. I want to be unique. I want to be me. And not to play a role, like I got to have this type of role, and I'm going to be the truck driver role, and wear truck driver things, and don't worry about gaining weight because that's what truck drivers look like. You know, I'm not going to be that guy. And I'm not going to make a channel that talks about specifically trucking things, because that's very low IQ stuff. Once you learn this shit, you learn this shit. And there's plenty of people that are going to help you out because they don't have anything else to offer. Me, I have so much to offer the world. I'm not going to make trucking videos unless you guys have an overabundance of a question or a scenario, or want to know about something specific or vague, you know, that isn't being touched on by other drivers. Then I'll make a video specifically for you. But of course, this channel's the mind of OPEX. This isn't a universal objective mind. This isn't one consciousness and one idea. This is one person, the subjective, who is explaining things to the world on how I perceive it, and how I understand it, and my new truths that come every day, which I surrender to, because that's how you should live your life. You should surrender to new evidence if it totally just dismantles your last truth or your last evidence source. So that's why that's important to me, is that when I'm talking about evidence, to surrender to this new evidence and to understand what real evidence is. It's not research-based, and it's not, and everything has variables. These things you got to understand to understand new truths. And the new truth is closer to the objective truth than dogma, or than listening to a scientist, what a scientist study was. Because you can interpret and you can put in variables into the equation when you have your subjective truth, right? Riding a bike, you can go faster than running. However, what if you're riding your bike up a certain grade? Well, there's a variable right there. Maybe you can run faster on that method, running up a hill faster than riding a bike. I mean, there's a million variables. You can't just say riding a bike is faster than running. You can't just say that. There's variables. And I know that's a stupid analogy there, bringing in bike riding and running, but I mean, it's that simple. There's variables to everything. So your truths is separate than somebody else. Riding your bike in Florida is faster than riding your bike in West Virginia, where it's mountainy. So, yeah. And don't hate on somebody else's truth. Just encourage that person. That person might be behind you. This person might have different information than you. Now, when you argue your point and you create that argument, what people like to do is double down on their belief, which is scary, but it happens more often than not. So the point is, when you argue your truth and they dismiss it, well, what's going to happen? It's still in the mind some way or another that this is what somebody else thinks. Now, that person might not be ready for that truth. That person might not be ready to understand what it is you are trying to say, because it goes totally against their lifestyle, their understanding of life, their dogma, whatever it is. So don't get frustrated. You should be able to speak the truth even if your voice cracks. Speak the truth even if everyone around you is going to hate you for it. Speak the truth because the truth is more important than false understanding on life. Right? If you see somebody going through a bad path because of their truths, you need to correct that. You need to understand that you can bring something to that person and that you're always growing too. So you might not have all the truths too, but you can use reason and evidence and go over the reason and evidence and apply logic to the scenario where somebody else fell short, or that you both are falling short, and that you can both learn and better yourself through it. So a great approach is to, hey, let's get through this together. I tried to do this and people hate me for it, and I don't care. It's that when I'm trying to apply my logic onto a scenario using reason and evidence, I tend to feel like, hey, let's figure this out together. Well, this is what you're going through. This is what you understand. If you separate yourself from this and we think of it objectively together, we can probably come up with some new answers and new understandings. Okay, this guy totally just went from 70 to 55 for no reason. But that's the point that I'm getting at, is that you can work it out together and understand that, hey, we can get to the next level together, and we can both understand this better by using who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay? There's a deer crossing the street. I see that there's footprints. Now the question is, when did he get here? When did the deer cross the street? How did the deer cross the street? Where's the trail? We realize it's a deer, so the who is gone because we looked at the tracks. And, you figure this out. Okay, if you're a hunter, now you go through all the fucking reasoning and evidence and everything that you have to create a logical analysis of where can I find this deer? How big is the deer? Is it worth hunting? Is it worth finding? Okay, it's easy enough. Let's go find this deer. Oh, it's a buck. It's a 12 point or whatever. Buck, and you know what? It's worth it. I want the meat, and it's hunting season. So let's go find this deer. Example, random example, rather. But you go through that. And if somebody says, no, that's not a deer, it didn't come through here for a month, well, be like, hey, I think it did, and here's why. You know what I'm getting at here? So their truth shouldn't stop right there. It shouldn't be just stop there. Go further. Because once you stop is when you're probably wrong. If you're sure of something, you probably are wrong. So go further. And that's what I try to apply to this channel, is that when my brain goes to further depths than the average person, I want to show you guys where it went, where my brain came to a conclusion of, where it stopped, because then maybe I can go to the next level after that. And that's the point. Just keep going. You're going to keep learning. 1 + 1 = 2. Well, guess what? My brain went further. Me and a girl came together, 2 people, 1 + 1 = 2. But guess what? We created a third through sex. This was a alternative than the normal 1 + 1, because we added reproduction into it. And this variable changed 1 + 1. So now we can't just objectively say 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2, because I plus woman equals 3 if done right. Could be 4, could be 5, depends on how long I'm with this girl. So there's variables right now to the 1 + 1 = 2 that I've just explained to you. So if you just think farther and you think outside the box, you can get to those real truths in the variables. So you can never say that this is objectively, this is it. This is defined as this, and I'm stuck here in this type of mindset. Because once you're stuck and you're not going to be willing to learn, well, the information is going to be blocked, and you're never going to get to that next step. So your truths should be always growing. As far as you can take your mind now to the who, what, when, where, look at things objectively, look at things subjectively, look at the variables, look at everything there is to do to something, and you can go farther. And you might not be able to go that far right now, but then you look at it again tomorrow, and you might be able to get a little farther with your understanding. Then you can go, next year you're going to figure something different out. You should be ever growing, ever changing, and always surrendering to new evidence, whether that's empirical, anecdotal, and keep research at bay unless you can recreate that research. Because you're not going to truly understand something until you are involved with something. That is enough for this video. I feel like I mumbled a little bit excessively in this video, so I hope you guys get something out of it. I hope you understand the importance of truth, the importance of understanding new things, because once you stop learning, you start dying, at least inside. And what do they say about, I'm trying to remember who originally said this quote, and I'll leave you with this one. The average man dies at 25, but is not buried till 75. See you guys.